Hey everybody, what's going on? Hope you guys are doing good. I am doing just great. Hope you guys had a great Memorial Day weekend without the weather kind of ruining your plans. I know here in Illinois, we ended up going from sun to clouds to sun, and then a little bit of rain. And luckily it didn't mess up, the holiday dinner. So even though it's, hamburgers and hot dogs for a lot of people or doing something on the barbecue, I don't do ground meat anymore. I used to make hamburgers and kind of these hamburgers it's getting to where meat quality is not as it used to be when it comes to hamburger meat. So what I've been doing is I've been waiting for sales on fillets and picking up a bunch of fillets. Now, if you don't know what a fillet is, if you buy a T-bone steak, you have the one side of the bone that is the New York strip, and you have the other side, which is a much softer side, that's called the fillet. And usually fillets are cut thicker than what a T-bone would be, and you would still get them in different sizes and stuff like that. My store over here will have like $5.99 a pound for two, and you get two per package, so it comes out to be like $9 and some odd cents per package. So I'd pick up a bunch of those and throw them in the freezer. So instead of making like hamburgers, I throw fillets on the grill, and depending on how thick they are, they taste like hamburger. If you throw your fixings on them, as far as like you feel like hamburgers with cheese on them, onions, pickles, lettuce, tomato, whatever, ketchup, mustard, mayonnaise, it tastes just like a burger. And I think they are better quality as far as the meats go, because ground meat, you really don't know what you're getting in. And some ground meat, you get a little bit of bone inside there, or cartilage or something inside of it, which kind of I don't like chewing on something and finding a surprise in my food. So I'll do fillets and hot dogs on the grill, and I think it's a better alternative than ground meat. A little bit on the expensive side, but like I said, wait for sales. So anyways, I got a couple questions that were on my short, a couple of the shorts, and one of them was, do you ever take a break? Because I ended up finishing the Devlin EVH Devlin Custom, and then jumped into this one right away. Yes and no. I mean, it depends on how I feel. If I feel like working on something or getting involved in another project, I'll jump right into it. And in this case, that's kind of what I wanted to do. I had plans on what I wanted to do with this, how I wanted to do it. Now it was time to get that in motion and start working on it and getting it built. Number two question was on my last short, why don't you cut the pickups and neck out before putting the clear on? So this is not a normal clear that I put on here. This is a epoxy resin. All right. This is not the spray on 2K that I've been using. The epoxy resins I like using with veneers. Guaranteed the veneer is not going to cause you any problems as far as peeling up on the edges or anything else when it's locked under a thick coating of epoxy resin. So if you look at some of the veneered guitars that are out there that you can buy, they don't use a normal clear coat on them. They use something that's a little bit heavier, and epoxy resin is one of those heavy coats that I like to use. And overall protection is unreal as far as this epoxy resins go. The only problems with epoxy resin and using it is you get bubbles, number one. All right, so you have to be very careful of how you prep your wood before applying the epoxy resin. So you want to make sure that you're not going to have any open pores or something to where bubbles start coming out. Now, if you're doing something like a mahogany or basswood or anything else that you don't have a veneer on, but you want to do a nice coating of epoxy resin on it, the pores in that wood will start to create bubbles. And during the curing process of the epoxy resin, chasing those bubbles is a pain in the ass, especially when you're doing it with a torch. If you heat up the epoxy too much while you're using the torch to get rid of the bubbles, you end up creating a problem with the epoxy, and it just looks like wavy and shitty and everything else. So you got to be careful with that. But using it on top of a veneer, because there's really not too much open pores and stuff for air to escape from through a veneer, you don't get very many bubbles, and it works out pretty nice. So the question was, why don't I cut out the pickup and the neck pocket first before I put the clear on? Okay, so epoxy resins is kind of a little bit of a pain in the ass because it goes wherever it wants to go, especially this stuff, which is a self-leveling epoxy resin. I think a lot of epoxy resins are self-leveling. This stuff here, it rounds off the edges. So if I bring you to the edge of the body of the guitar, it kind of rounds off the sides. These are sharp edges. And what happens is it does the same thing in open areas. So it doesn't look completely flat. It has a little bit of a round bubble to it. And the only way to stop that from happening is to fill up the cavity completely with epoxy resin and then start routing it out from scratch, which I could do that. Or after I put the sheet of veneer on here, just leave them covered. If there a little bit of epoxy seeps through the veneer, well, a little bit of epoxy seeps through. I try to be careful to where I don't put any pressure in those areas to where either cracks the veneer and epoxy can seep inside there, or I'll put a foam pad inside there so that will absorb most of the epoxy from the top that soaks through the veneer or follows a crack someplace. And then that'll be, kind of like a catch-all, so it's not all over the inside of the pocket to where I have to cut it out, and then the depth of it, fix the depth of the pocket itself. What I do with the neck pocket here is I'll end up masking tape the whole inside over here and creating a wall around the edge over here. So when I pour this, as you can see, this kind of matches the body as well on the other side of this. So when I pour the epoxy, it goes over and then around the edges all the way around, sealing up the area on the outside of the body, but not sealing up the inside of the pocket. And I get nice flat surface. Once I route this thing out, once I'm done doing the epoxy work, I'll route this out. I'll drill a hole where the X's are and put a bearing bit inside there, follow the edges of the opening, and cut a nice chunk of the veneer out. And this will have a nice flat look, so it'll still look like a guitar top without having rolled over edges. Now the control cavity portion of this, that part I really don't care about, and I'll tell you why in a minute. So another thing is like, okay, well, where's the bridge going to go? How do you know where the bridge is and stuff like that? Well, before doing the epoxy resin, well, this is a veneer. You can kind of feel and push in certain areas, and you can find out where the posts are going to go with the sleeves for your Tune-o-Mac bridge, and I'll put a little dot in those areas. I have a certain type of a bit that I can use that can just route out that area, and the bit's got a point, or not a point, but a tip on it to where it will ride the edge of the inside of the hole, and just like using a bearing. So the control area, the nice thing about this using an epoxy and using a veneer is you just cleaned the slate for putting your controls in. You can either go flip this over, locate the holes that are originally in the wood, and put the controls back exactly the way they were, or since this top is nice and clean, relocate them to where however you want, and that's what I'm going to do with this. So the control cavity on the other side of this is clean, has no epoxy resin or anything else on there. So when I do the back of this body, I'm not going to mask off the area where the controls are. I am going to plug the holes if there's any holes that are close to the floor or where the controls mount. I am going to plug those holes up so no epoxy starts going anyplace else other than that area. And what I mean by doing that is when I put epoxy inside on the back of this, it's going to seep inside there. There is no Countersinking or indentation for the cover plate. The cover plate just goes on the back of this, flat even with the body. And what that's going to do is that's going to cause some of the epoxy to go into that cavity, filling up the holes where the locations of the stock controls were. I can route that out real easily, cleaning up the whatever epoxy, changing the thickness of it, whatever. I can clean that out real easily and start from scratch. So now I can put the controls where I want to put them, not where they originally were, which works out perfect when you're doing something like a veneer. Excuse me. Now, this idea I came across by looking at some of the private stock built PRS guitars. And I saw something that was kind of, I guess they call it like a dragon burst. So I was looking at it and I'm like, man, I like the way that blue and that green go into each other. And the blue of it was a quilted top. Now, doing this on a flame maple doesn't really look all that great. Doing this on a quilt actually looks great. I love the way this looks. Now, the veneer that I have came in 3 sheets. 3 sheets that were all cut and book matched from the same tree. So each piece of veneer that I have matches this one here. Not exactly, because each layer is different as you go further or deeper into the tree, but they all have this part here. The pattern of the quilting is pretty much the same. Some of these lines that are inside of the wood here, they're pretty close too. It changes very little. So one sheet I messed up when I started putting the veneer on the body. I found a different way of doing veneering. I picked up another vacuum bag for doing this for cold press, but I found a different way of applying the veneer, especially to this body, because this body was not a complete flat surface. Using the cold press on a flat surface works out great. I found using it on a rounded surface, a surface that is like more of a Les Paul arch top style, which this doesn't have the height of an arch top does, but it's kind of close to it, cracks the veneer when you use it under a cold press. Now, got a little bit of loss of words here. The way that I did this is I found that there is a spray adhesive that 3M makes. All right, I know, spray adhesive that really is not going to work well with this, right? That's what you would think. Well, actually, it worked really good with this. And the first sheet, the center of the way it was book matched was way off from center of where this might be a little bit off of center, but not like it was the first time I tried to do this. And I tried to pull the sheet off of here. And once it was on, I couldn't get it off. I mean, it would not come off at all. I had to sand it all the way back down to the original mahogany and start from scratch again, which was a pain in the ass because it just was really hard to get all the glue off of this thing that I use. Now, spray adhesives I've used for doing vinyl as far as upholstery goes for automotive use, carpeting, automotive use again, different types of applications for different types of spray adhesives, and doing custom work as far as stereos and shit like that, and you are recreating a panel or something for your vehicle, that's out in the elements. You have hot and cold. You have winters that are cold. You have summers that are hot, and the car's sitting outside or whatever in the sun and shit, and that inside of your vehicle is baking. I've never had problems with 3M spray adhesives coming loose or having any type of an issue. This one here is made for doing veneering, and yeah, it was a pain in the ass to try to pull this shit off. So what I ended up doing is I had a full sheet of veneer. Didn't cut it out to the size of the body or nothing. The first one I did. The second one, So I found where my center was as far as back and top, marked it on my sheet that I had on top of the counter over here, and because the veneer was a little bit longer than the body. I had to make, something like this on each side and kind of put a mark on there where center would be, making sure that the body would not shift around on me when I'm applying the veneer. So instead of using the cold press, which that caused me a bunch of problems, and I didn't want to waste another sheet, I was looking for other alternatives, and I found the 3M spray. Now this body is arched on the sides over here. It's got a curve here now. It's arched and then flattens out a little bit, kind of like a Les Paul, but not extreme like a Les Paul body is. But I bet you if I do this on a Les Paul body, it won't split or crack either because of the way I'm doing this. So I sprayed the spray adhesive on top of the body, spray it on the underside of the side that I'm not using for my top, and let it sit. Once those two adhesives meet up and touch, it's like instant bond. And I could not peel off the first one for the life of me in order to fix it or to remove it without having to sand it all off. So this time worked out really good. I still have another sheet of this, and like I said, each sheet is a match of each one, and they're both been split and are book matched. So I have like another piece almost exactly like this one. So I'm thinking about taking like this area off of that and putting it onto headstock, or finding like some like this area over here and putting it onto headstock, so it kind of matches with the body. I don't think I would do the green to the blue. I think I just would do the blue, and that would be it. But yeah, so that's kind of how this is done. Now this is the first coat of epoxy resin, so if there's any like dips or flaws or whatever it's inside of here right now, that's due to like the control cavity being over here, and where the holes are for the controls are still in the wood, so there's a little bit of a dip over here I noticed in the video. But other than that, this is looking really, really good. If I sanded this down and buffed it, it would be perfect. But this is not going to get like one coat. I'm going to put a couple coats on it, sanding down between each coat. This is the body that was the donor body that has a neck that goes with it, that has the tree of life, I believe, on it, with the birds inlays on it. And this is what I bought this for, which I'm thinking about using it on here. I'm not quite sure yet. So I've got a couple of sheets here. I've got a couple of sheets of a thinner inlay that match the neck. All right. Then I have a couple of sheets of Ibanez that are a little bit bigger, but kind of match the neck a little bit more. And then for the birds, I picked up these, which these are hummingbirds, and these would go on, this would go like around the body a little bit over here with a few birds in it as well to match the neck of the guitar. Not sure if I want to go that route or not. I'm still debating if I want to do this. It's really not going to be that hard to do. The only thing is I have to make up my mind before I put the final coats of epoxy resin on here. So yeah, that's my story. I'm sticking to it. This is going to get a, once this cures up, it's hard now, but it's still flexible. As you can see here, can you see it? Am I in the camera? Yeah. I could touch it. It's not sticky, but it's still flexible. Once I get to the point to where I can't bend it, that's when this guy starts getting sanded. And that'll be, well, let's see. I did this morning. Had my holiday today, and probably tomorrow, 72 hours or 24 hours to 72 hours. That's when I'll be able to work on this thing and start getting some sanding done. All right, guys, you guys take it easy. Have a good one. I'll catch up with you in the next video.